Hi, I'm Mary Mancini, your Tennessee Democratic Party chair. And this is If You Don't Know, Now You Know, a TNDP podcast. Recorded live from the Tennessee State Capitol in Nashville, we'll be speaking with lawmakers, activists, and candidates, people who can tell you and show you how the laws are made that affect our lives. There's no shortage of issues to be covered about freedom, opportunity, equity, justice, and safety, and we'll hustle to keep you in the loop. Hi, this is Mary Mancini, chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party, and you are listening to If You Don't Know, Now You Know, a Tennessee Democratic Party podcast. And today we have one of the fam on, the TND. Well, they're all Democrats are TNDP fam, but our guest is Director of Party Affairs, Maria Brewer.
Hi.
Before we get started and get into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to be talking about today, which is the primary in Tennessee, the delegate selection process, and the national convention, which happens in July in Milwaukee, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your job is at the Tennessee Democratic Party as Director of Party Affairs?
Sure. I get to do all the fun stuff. All the fun stuff goes through my department, Mary.
All the partying?
All the party stuff. No. I get to help to organize Democrats all over the state. We have 95 counties in Tennessee. And so we have Democrats in every corner of the state. And setting up county parties, working with our state executive committee leadership, our county chairs association, our county party development committee, and young Democrats, college Democrats, the Federation of Democratic Women. So many different organizations. Plus, we just started a new caucuses program, not electoral caucuses like just happened in Iowa.
See, we use the same name for too many things.
Constituency caucuses. Groups of people that have shared experiences and bring new ideas to the table. So we've got a great caucuses program that just started as well. So I get to work with all those different arms and branches of the Democratic Party across the state and get to meet tons of people and talk about where we're going with the Democratic Party in Tennessee.
It sounds like so much fun.
It's not bad.
And you've actually seen a lot of, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Have you seen a lot of growth in Tennessee and in the Democratic Party since you became the Director of Party Affairs?
Oh, for sure. Well, like I kind of just mentioned, that the new caucuses program, the idea that people who don't necessarily have the time to be involved in a county party structure or an organization like that, but they've got a shared passion for things like Veterans and Military Families Caucus, the Black Caucus, Hispanic Caucus, Labor Caucus. We've got a environmental caucus, rural caucus, and really the sky's the limit on that because the program is set up to where people can identify a shared interest and create a caucus.
We have several in the pipeline.
Right.
We've got a healthcare professionals caucus in the pipeline, an environmental caucus in the pipeline, and I think there's one more in the pipeline that I can't remember.
Well, and that's the beauty of it. So
it's the beauty
right?
of it.
People can bring their experience to the table and develop ideas and programs and how do we reach out to more and more Democrats and bring them in to what we're doing here in Tennessee and figure out how do we express what Democratic values are all over the state.
And advise the Tennessee Democratic Party based on what their constituencies want and need and are clamoring for.
Exactly.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Let's move on a little bit and talk about the primary system in Tennessee. So first things first, we do not hold a caucus.
Right. No.
Do not hold a caucus. It is on the ballot. It is an election.
It's really, I've been talking about this with folks ever since the night of the Iowa caucuses.
But we do hold a caucus. It's so confusing.
It's the best of both worlds.
Okay, go ahead.
It's the best of both worlds. It really is because our primary system, people get to go vote. And the one thing that we are lucky about here in Tennessee compared to other states is we have early voting. So we are in the middle of early voting right now, lasts until February 25th, and Election Day on March 3rd. Everybody has access to go vote for the Democratic candidate of your choice.
And if you need information about where you vote, whether it's early or whether it is on Election Day, go to iwillvote.com.
Yes, that is the easiest place because you get, first of all, with that, you get to check to make sure you are registered to vote. So that's number one. And then you get all of your polling places, your early voting. It's customized to you. So that's a great little tool to use and tell your friends about. But yeah, having a primary, Secretary of State runs the election. You know, there's voting in every county and the numbers get added up. There's there's no app to crash on election night. So bless their hearts. But then on the other side of that, once we do have all the votes tallied up and we know how many delegates each of our candidates has earned.
Well, hang on. Before you say that, I think we yada over a really important part. So on our ballot that we get to vote on, when we are voting now during early voting, and on March 3rd, where Tennessee is one of the Super Tuesday states, right? So we vote with a bunch of other states. We go into our polling location. We ask for the Democratic Party ballot. We cast our vote for our favorite Democrat, and then they count up the votes. And in order to get delegates, you have to get 15%.
Right. Okay. I didn't know we were getting. All right. Yes. Yeah. In order to get delegates, candidates have to hit a threshold of at least 15%. And then the highest vote getters are going to compete for those delegates. And that's all part of that primary process. But we do have caucuses too, which is that kind of best of both worlds thing where after we have that process, which we can talk more about those details and stuff, we still have the party building aspects of caucuses where people get together face to face, they talk to each other, they know each other. It's not like on the Republican side where there's just a bunch of names on the ballot. So if people have seen their sample ballots in the paper, they call the office, they're like, I guess nobody wants to be a delegate on the Democratic side.
Delegates to the convention.
Yeah, yes, they do. But we don't do it on the ballot. We don't do it with a bunch of strangers and names. We get together face to face at county conventions and then congressional district conventions so that the people who are supporting those candidates really get to know and pick who those delegates to Milwaukee are going to be that's going to represent them there. So
okay,
that's the kind of best of both worlds process.
And it is a process. Let's talk about that because it can get very convoluted. So the voting part of it is easy, right? Voting now during early voting on March 3rd, pull the Democratic primary ballot, mean you ask for the Democratic Party primary ballot, you vote for your favorite candidate. Mm-hmm. 4 of them get, let's not name 4, don't want to get ourselves in trouble, but 4 of them get more than 15% of the Democratic Party primary vote.
Right.
Counted up, right? So now we have 4 candidates that win delegates to go to the convention in July in Milwaukee.
Right. So the delegates that we have are divided up by congressional district, and each candidate is going to earn delegates based on how many votes they get. The more votes they get, the more delegates they earn. But we don't have a whole lot of delegates. We aren't California with 400 delegates.
We have 73.
We have a total of 73. Mm-hmm. 42 of them are divided up along congressional district lines. So what we do here at the TNDP is after election night, we get all of the vote totals from the Secretary of State. They're reported to us by county. So we go through and add them up by congressional district. And that gives us the vote total for each congressional district. And then we can see how the candidates rank.
And let me just interrupt. And I'm going to keep interrupting because okay. I know that this is a process that is very complicated and not everybody sometimes doesn't understand the buzzwords or the districts mean what they mean because there's so many different districts. But when you say congressional districts, we have 9 Congress people that go to Washington to represent Tennesseans. And so those congressional districts you're talking about include the different parts of counties that make up each of the 9 congressional districts.
Yeah.
All right. Just walking it back.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the process of getting the delegates apportioned out to each candidate is just math. First of all, like we said, they have to have at least 15%. Any candidates that don't get 15% aren't eligible to earn delegates. And we have so many candidates this time around. There's going to be candidates above the 15% line and candidates below the 15% line.
And even some that are still on the ballot that dropped out.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason that is because the Secretary of State in Tennessee gives the candidates a deadline to file and then a deadline to drop out. And if you miss that deadline to drop out, your name still appears on the ballot.
Right.
So like Kamala Harris is still on the ballot. Is she not?
No, she actually, that is exactly such an interesting story about how these deadlines work. The date by state law that Secretary of State had to name the candidates that were going to be on the ballot is the day she dropped out. So he had announced a list of 16 candidates, but that was the same day that she dropped out, so he was able to remove her. So we actually have 15. I know, right? So we have 15 Democrats listed on your ballot that you'll see if you look at your sample ballot. And of course, 8 of them right now are still running. So you can cast your ballot for any one of them. And then once we add the votes up, we'll see who got the most votes. And the folks that were the highest vote getters are the ones who will get the delegates. And in some cases, it's going to depend on the number of delegates that we have to give out. So for instance, in a lot of our congressional districts, they have 4 delegates to give out. So just to try to use the simplest math possible so people understand, let's say candidate A.
And by people, she means me.
But let's say candidate A gets 50% of those votes. They're going to get 50% of the delegates in that congressional district. So that congressional district, let's say Congressional District 6, where I live in Sumner County, we have 4 delegates. So half is 2 delegates. Candidate A gets 2 delegates. And then let's say candidate B got 26% and candidate C got 24%. They're each going to get 1 delegate. So that's the easiest possible math.
Let's leave it there.
All of the real math will be harder.
Yes.
And so we'll get all of those numbers crunched. We'll let all of our counties know and our congressional districts know which candidates earn delegates in their area, because it could be different. And that's the one cool thing about how our delegation works. It's designed to be representative. And we know that the delegate selection process is complicated, but everything in it is designed to be representative of different parts of the state.
Okay,
and
so like
of everybody in the state.
So in East Tennessee Congressional District, let's say Congressional District 2, can have delegates awarded to different candidates than Congressional District 8, which is Northwest Tennessee, and a little bit of Shelby.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. So, one part of the state doesn't overwhelm or swamp another part of the state. Each part of the state there's different numbers of delegates in different parts of the state because it's based on both population, which is roughly equal between congressional districts, but also on Democratic vote performance. Because this is about people who vote for Democrats in Tennessee and representing Democratic voters in Tennessee. So the 9th Congressional District, which is Memphis, which is just part of Shelby County, is a whole congressional district, and they have 7 delegates because they have such strong Democratic voting history. So they'll have more delegates to give out than I have in 6th Congressional District, or we have in, like you said, the 1st Congressional District in Northeast Tennessee. So it's a really interesting process.
Very interesting. Okay, so the math is done. And now we know which candidates get how many delegates, basically, for all 9 congressional districts.
Right.
Okay. So that's the math. Now we know what we're aiming for. So let's talk about the delegate selection process, because like you said, the Republicans have their delegates on the ballot. You go in and you vote. This is where our caucuses come in. And as you're fond of saying, this is where we have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So walk us through the caucus and the actual delegate selection process in Tennessee.
Sure. So the first step is any Democrat anywhere in the state can be involved as a selector. So what is a selector? A selector is someone who selects who is going to be a delegate. The candidate has earned their delegates, and then there's going to be a county convention. The county convention happens on March 7th. They happen at noon Central Time or 1 o'clock Eastern Time. So everybody's...
So each county, each Democratic county party has a convention.
Right.
Which is county-based. So any Democrat in that county on March 7th, which is a Saturday, can go to the designated place and participate in electing selectors.
Yes, in becoming a selector.
Become a selector. Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Become a selector.
Exactly. So if you're a Democrat, you can find your county's convention by either checking out their Facebook page or by going to tndp.org. We have an event section with a calendar. Take a look at the calendar. You can search the calendar by date or by zip code. Find the convention in your area. You can go to that convention. When you go in, you simply sign a pledge that you're a Democrat, that you voted in the primary, and then you can become a selector in the caucus of your choice.
Okay, so what does a selector do? And when you say, explain caucus of your choice.
Sure. All those candidates that we talked about getting delegates each get to have a caucus in the convention.
So you're in Sumner County.
Yep. You go to your convention in Sumner County, you walk in the door and you pick which candidate do you want a caucus for. Okay? So of the candidates that earn delegates.
And there's 4, apparently, in Sumner.
There's 4 delegates altogether. There might be 3 caucuses or 4 caucuses. Maybe there's only going to be 2 caucuses. We won't know that until after the primary. So that's the fun part.
This is an example.
Yeah.
So the example is in that congressional district, there are 4
Okay, so let's say that there's 4 different candidates that go over 15%. They each earn 1 delegate. So they're each going to have a caucus. And so when you go in, you pick which candidate you want to caucus for, and you can become one of their selectors.
So candidate A, Maria Brewer.
Yep.
You walk in and you go, I want to be a selector that chooses the delegate for candidate A.
Right.
And you, in that county convention, you go off and you meet with all the other people that want to do the same thing.
Right. That's what a caucus is. Getting together. Each county has a different selector number depending on how big the county is, how many people it has. Bigger counties get more selectors. Smaller counties get fewer. And that's pretty much the business.
Per caucus.
Per caucus,
So if there's 100 in Sumner County, again, just pulling a number out of the air, then each candidate can have a maximum of 100 selectors that caucus on that county convention day.
Right. Yeah.
Woohoo!
You got it, Mary. So becoming a selector just means that you're supporting that candidate, that you want to help to decide who that candidate's delegates are going to be, who's going to go to Milwaukee this summer to represent your area for that candidate. Then you get to go to another convention. You get to go to your congressional district convention on the 21st.
So 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later, 2 Saturdays later. So mark off 2 Saturdays on your calendar in March 7th and March 21st. On the 21st, in each congressional district, all the counties that make up that congressional district will meet together in one big congressional district convention. So you have to have been at your county convention on the 7th to be a selector, and that's how you get to go on the 21st. And then again, they go into those caucuses. So instead of just people from Sumner County in candidate A's caucus, we would have people from Sumner County and Putnam County and Robertson County and Macon County, and there's like 19 counties in the 6th congressional district. So all the people that are supporting the same candidate from all those counties get together, and that's where they actually elect who's going to be the delegates that were earned by that candidate. Again, face-to-face, people get to meet each other, know each other, build relationships, because down the road, not only are we going to be working for and knocking doors for this presidential candidate, but we're also going to be working for state legislative races, local races. Encouraging people to run as Democrats is a big deal, and having strong county parties, having strong Democratic organizations and Democrats working together, building each other up instead of tearing each other down is a big part of putting folks together and, making progress for this year. We've got a lot of great opportunities.
We do. Okay, so we're about to enter the congressional district caucus land. Let's do a deep dive into that. We did a deep dive into the county convention. Let's do a deep dive into the congressional district convention, because it's not just about the selectors, right? It's also about the people that want to be delegates. And that is something that you have to apply for, basically. And the deadline for that application was today.
Yeah.
So how many people across the state applied to be a delegate?
Over 700 people filled
700
out.
Democrats.
Right. Filled out declaration of candidacy forms.
Wow. Covet. This is fierce competition.
Yeah. It is running a campaign for yourself.
Right. So you basically have to convince all of those selectors when you get to the congressional district convention to vote for you to represent that candidate in Milwaukee in July at the convention.
Right. Yeah. The people who filled out the declaration of candidacies that want to be delegates to go to Milwaukee from the congressional district level, their job now is to get votes for their candidate, right? Early voting's still going on. The primary isn't over yet. Their number one job is to turn out the vote for their candidate, because the more votes that their candidate gets, the more delegates they're going to earn. And so the more chances they are going to have to be delegates. So it all reinforces voting and how important voting is. And then everyone who participates needs to have voted in the primary. And then so that person, let's say I wanted to be a delegate, I would be, volunteering for my candidate, meeting other volunteers, meeting people in my county party, meeting people in other counties, because all those other counties in my congressional district are going to be coming and caucusing for my candidate and deciding if they want me to be their delegate or not. So, meeting people and finding those people who have those 2 Saturdays in March, so March 7th and March 21st, and making sure that Those people who are supporting me as a delegate are going to go to their county conventions.
On the 7th.
On the 7th.
And then they're going to be able to make it to the congressionals on the 21st.
Exactly. So you only go to your county convention where you're registered to vote. So if you are thinking about being a selector and supporting your friend who wants to be a delegate, but you live in a different county, don't drive to their county to go to their convention. Stay in your own county, go to your convention so you can become a selector. And then, again, all those counties will meet up on the 21st at their congressional district convention.
To vote for the delegate. So someone in Robertson County has a friend, and somebody in Sumner County, they have the same friend. They want to vote for that person. They all go to the congressional district convention, caucus, and vote, and compete. Help their candidate for delegate compete, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so the end of that process, we end up with 42 delegates.
Right. That's our 42 congressional district delegates.
Congressional district delegates. But the question is, we have 73 in our
full
delegation. How do we get to 73 from 42?
Right. Well, 42 is the biggest group of our delegates, and they're elected, like how we just said, along congressional district lines. But we also have 9 automatic delegates. Our automatic delegates used to be called super delegates. They're not so super anymore. Sorry, Mary. Not so super anymore because...
So, she's saying sorry because as chair of the Democratic Party in Tennessee, I automatically have that designation as being what once was a super delegate.
Right.
Which now is apparently an automatic delegate.
Yes.
Which means I had to retire my cape. I'm not happy. And thank you for laughing at that joke.
I get to laugh at that joke.
Every time I tell it, she laughs.
So automatic delegates are just the people we already know are in our delegation. So it's our DNC members. So like Chair Mancini just said, and our Vice Chair Bob Cowan. We've got 3 DNC members that are elected from Tennessee. And then we also have a DNC member at large who was appointed by Tom Perez. And then we also have, as part of our delegation and automatic delegates, our 2 Democratic congressmen, Steve Cohen and Jim Cooper. And then we also have Al Gore in our delegation.
Yay,
as honored Democrat. So those are our 9 automatic delegates. And those automatic delegates are not elected by virtue of being part of a caucus of any particular candidate. So they are not voting as part of any first round tabulation of how our delegates are apportioned and earned through our primary system.
You mean when we go to Milwaukee?
When we go to Milwaukee, right. So we actually have 64 votes. If you've seen articles in the newspaper or anything, we're actually splitting up 64 delegates that are getting to vote when they go to Milwaukee.
On the first round.
On the first round. If we go past the first round,
so much
then
fun.
It'll be historic. So it's a historic election anyway, right? Because we've got so many excited candidates. I mean, over 700 people filled out my Google form online to try to be a delegate because we've got all of these great candidates that are really getting enthusiastic supporters of all different types, all different folks, all different ideas. And that's really the beauty of the Democratic Party. I know last night's debate got pretty heated and I hear people say, why do we have to fight? Well, we need to have a robust conversation. We need to be having this discussion.
Okay, this is a whole nother podcast.
That might be true. That might be true. Okay,
don't reel it in. Yeah, because we'll get off on a tangent. We'll be here for 3 hours.
So we've got our 9 automatic delegates. We've got our 42 congressional district delegates.
That's 51.
And then we have 8 party leader and elected official delegates.
Also known as PLEOs.
PLEOs, nice acronym. And then we have 14 at-large delegates. And both of those categories are 8 party leader and elected official, and then our 14 at-large. Those folks are all elected based on the statewide results. So instead of how we calculated it up by congressional district, we just take the totals from the whole state. We do the same kind of math. Which candidates earned 15% or more? Compare them to each other so we see proportionately how many votes they got, compare how many votes they got to each other, and then that's how we divide up the 14 at-large delegates, the 8 PLEO delegates, party leader and elected official delegates.
So give me an example of what a PLEO delegate would be, like
Sure.
a party leader and an elected official.
Yeah, it's actually very specific in our delegate selection plan. It's sort of in ranked order. So the first elected officials that get a crack at those positions are big city and big county mayors. And of course, these are Democrats.
Right.
But mayors are municipal positions, right? So it's someone who's been elected a big city or big county mayor who is a Democrat. They didn't have to run as a Democrat.
But they self-identify as a Democrat.
Right. So cities or municipal, counties are Democrat or Republican.
We love them.
Right. So that's the first group. The next group is our state legislative leadership. The next group are our state legislators, and then other local, municipal elected officials, and then party elected officials. And these are all people who've been elected on the ballot. So that's how those 8 positions, they get divided out into the candidates based on what the votes, statewide vote totals. But then those particular people get kind of first crack at those positions.
Right.
And then the 14 at-large positions are elected by our state executive committee as well. And
the state executive committee for the Tennessee Democratic Party is like the board of directors.
Yeah.
And there's 72 of them.
There's 72 of them. Our state executive committee is elected from all over the state, so they're a representative body of Democrats.
A man and a woman from each state Senate district. And there's 33 state Senate districts. And then we have 6 at-large.
Our 6 ex officio positions.
Ex officio positions. And sorry.
It's okay. We're both chomping at the bit to talk about ex officio positions.
It's a rabbit hole you could go down into, and you're so good at what you do and keep track of all this. But anyway, go ahead.
So the 14 at large, anyone can apply for those. The deadline for that is still open. So you can go to tndp.org, click on our convention information page. You can either download a form that you can fax or mail or bring to us, or you can fill out the form online. And so you can put yourself in the running for an at-large position. And the really interesting thing about the at-large positions is that when we get down to those last 14 people, first of all, those 14 delegate positions have been apportioned out to the candidates based on their vote totals statewide. But then we're also looking at the whole composition of our delegation in terms of, is our delegation reflecting the Democratic voters of Tennessee?
Now, this is my favorite part of this whole process, because when you watch the conventions every 4 years, the presidential conventions, the nominating conventions, and you look at the Republican convention and the attendees, the delegation from the Republican convention versus the delegation from the Democratic convention, you see much
different, isn't it?
Different demographics. And it's just a testament to the fact that Democrats see diversity as a strength. And part of the delegate selection plan that we had to create and run by the DNC for approval, and that's a whole nother process. That takes months and months and months. You've been working on that for a really long time. That lays out, like you said, what our delegation should look like to reflect the diversity within the Democratic Party.
Right.
And it's spectacular, right? So to finish what you were saying, the 14 at-large seats that are voted on by the executive committee, the board of directors, has to keep an eye when they vote on them to make sure that we are fulfilling the Democratic Party promise of diversity being our strength and inclusion being our strength.
Right.
So from the congressional district delegates that are selected, we might not get that diversity that's built into our plan. So we have to make it up somehow, and that's why we have those at-large positions. What are the diversity goals? What are they based on in the delegate selection process?
Right. So those representation goals in our delegate selection plan are based on previous demographic studies of who makes up the Democratic voters in Tennessee. So looking at the last Democratic elections, how many African Americans voted, Latinos,
go ahead.
Asian and Pacific Islander, Native American vote, LGBTQ plus community, the disabled voter community, and young voters under 36. So all of those different demographics are looked at. We actually look at the proportionate number of Democratic votes cast, how many of them from those different communities, and then set up representation goals. So those goals are there.
Baked into the plan itself.
In the plan itself. Yeah. So first of all, we know.
And every state does that.
Right, and every state does this. We know our 9 automatic delegates. We know where they fall along those demographic lines. And then we'll have our 42 congressional district delegates after that March 21st convention. So we'll be able to look at the delegation as a whole as it stands with those 2 groups identified. And then we'll have our 8 party leader and elected official positions and our 14 at-large positions. And our state executive committee takes very, very seriously making sure that we have our diversity represented. And so the people that are applying at large, if they fit in to helping reflect that helps them to get those positions, at large positions. Of course, always along the lines of the caucuses and the candidates that actually earn the delegates. And the candidates are very intentional as well about making sure that their delegation is going to have diversity in it.
Thank you so much for explaining this entire process. Was there anything else that we didn't touch on that you think people need to know?
Just that it's very important to be involved yourself, to be part of the discussion, to be part of the process, and not sit back and let other people say, well, somebody else will take care of that, or that's not for me, or the DNC is in charge of that, or I don't know what the TNDP is. The Democratic Party is made up of people. So, if you're a Democrat and you're interested in this process is open and transparent and accessible to you. And if you have ideas about things, about how it could work or how it could be different, this is going to happen again in 4 years. And it takes a lot of planning and a lot of forethought. So about 2 years from now, start thinking about how the process in 4 years could be different, and you can be a part of making changes and bringing new ideas in. You just have to put yourself forward to be a part of the process, be part of your county party, be part of a caucus, and stay involved in what's going on instead of just observing and letting other people think that other people are in charge when actually you could be in charge.
Exactly. Every Democrat in Tennessee is the Tennessee Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. So lastly, please go vote. Early voting in the presidential preference primary is happening right now. You can find out more information about where you vote and when you can vote, because it's different in every county, at iwillvote.com. Make sure you check your voter registration. It's important to vote to exercise your franchise, first of all. But I hope what we explained today is the importance of your voting for your favorite candidate, because that directly impacts the number of delegates that they get from Tennessee at the convention, which can directly impact whether or not they win the nomination. Right. We don't know what's going to happen in Milwaukee in July. Right. So the process of voting this time is so important, and it's always important. But in this particular instance, for you and your favorite candidate, you need to actually go and vote in the presidential preference primary.
And take your friends. Super Tuesday, Tennessee there's only 4 states, I think, that have more delegates at stake than Tennessee does on March 3rd. Wow. So we are in a critical spot in this primary process. This is by no means decided. It's by no means over. It's really just begun. I will say again, vote your heart in the primary and vote your party in November, because we can discuss, we can talk, we can have a robust conversation right now, and we can come together. We can do both of those things. We're Democrats. We can actually walk and chew gum at the same time. And
have a robust discussion while doing it.
We can. So, and we have to, because that's the only way we're going to get Trump out of the office that he's currently occupying, that he has no business being in. So we can do this. And we can bring Tennessee right along and elect Democrats here.
That's right. And we are. We're getting better every day. So,
we really are.
Maria, thank you so much for being a guest on the Tennessee Democratic Party podcast. If you don't know, now you know. And now I think people know about the delegate selection process and the convention in Tennessee. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. Really appreciate it. Maria Brewer, Director of Party Affairs at the Tennessee Democratic Party. I'm Mary Mancini, your chair, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye. Thanks for listening. You can find out more about the show at tndp.org/podcast. Follow us on Instagram at TENN Democratic Party and on Twitter at TNDP. This show is distributed by We Own This Town. And don't forget to check to make sure you're still registered to vote at sos.tn.gov. If you're not registered, you can go there and do that too. So do it.